And we begin tonight with Bill Grayson, who's been with us before. He's a native of San Francisco and president of Falcon Point Capital, which is an investment and hedge fund here in San Francisco. Bill's also been active in civic affairs on both the local and national levels, a regular commentator on TV, frequent speaker at investment conferences around the world, and now almost our in-house investment commentator, which we appreciate.
Thank you, Arthur.
Taking time out from your company. We read about the hedge funds. You are a hedge fund. And we understand that there's a crisis. And the average viewer doesn't really care. It's just I hope all those traders, all those geckos, they all go bankrupt. But it does affect our viewers, doesn't it?
Yes. It affects everybody who's got a pension plan or is invested in one. So whether you're a nurse, you're a firefighter, you're a policeman, you're any sort of union laborer, or you're a rich CEO, you typically will have money, even though you may not know it, in a hedge fund, a private equity fund, or some sort of alternative investment that might also be timber, might be real estate, might be a lot of things you don't even know about.
Certainly collateralized debt, mortgages,
collateralized
put together
debt,
big billion-dollar packages.
Sold off
in pieces.
Right.
Now, the genesis of this is that the pension funds knew they couldn't meet their obligations to their retirees.
Correct.
Tell us about that.
Correct. So anybody who had any money invested in the market at all during the dot-com bubble and the burst and the following bear market probably lost a lot of money. So if you had your basic investment in, let's say, a technology mutual fund, and that went down 30% or more in 2000 and 2001, you were no different than a big endowment or a pension plan.
In fact, they were, right?
They were.
They all are affected. Hospital endowments.
Hospital endowments.
University endowments.
Correct.
Pension funds.
Correct.
And individual investors. Okay, so here we are now. They need better yields to meet their obligations. And they discover and they're sold the idea of hedge funds. In the briefest terms, tell us how the hedge fund met that need.
Well, they're hedge funds broadly. They're similar to ice cream. There's many different flavors of hedge funds as there are in ice cream.
Okay.
So that's the first issue. It would take a whole show to explain the whole complexities of a hedge fund. A good one is trying to do two things very simply: enhance returns and reduce risk. So going back to your question earlier, you've got all these people, including the big endowments, that lost a fortune during the meltdown, and they're saying, hey, we can't afford to be down 30% in a year. We have to find some vehicles and some managers that can preserve our capital when the markets are crashing. And that's what a hedge fund, if it's doing it correctly, is doing for its investors.
Now, why and what's the crisis now? The average viewer reads about this crisis. It's very complicated. Again, in the ability you have, which is why you're a frequent guest on television, explain what the crisis is.
Okay. Well, it's a great question, and I beg to differ. What's the crisis? Where's the crisis? I don't really know that there is one, much like you can have a doctor, a lawyer, a mechanic who does something wrong or who screws up. You've got 8,000 to 10,000 hedge funds across the country. That's a lot of them. A certain percentage will underperform, might blow up, might lose money.
Some have blown up.
Some have blown up. So the issue, the most recent one that's getting everybody's attention, which has all of Capitol Hill abuzz, is a couple things. One, it's the big private equity IPO of Blackstone, which hasn't blown up and is a phenomenal
By the way, let's
firm.
stop for a minute. Blackstone basically bought 1/3 of all the office buildings in San Francisco in the last 24 months.
Correct.
Okay. They also are the #1 landlord in Silicon Valley of warehouses, Blackstone.
Right.
Blackstone is all around the world, billions of dollars.
Huge, billions of dollars. So now that's a successful one. Let's go back to the other one that's causing some of the angst.
Okay.
The Blackstone one, and we can get to that, but that's Capitol Hill saying, look at all these rich guys that made billions on this IPO. Let's go get the money. Let's change the tax law so those guys get whacked just like everybody else. So there is some unfair tax treatment that's trying to get. Now, going back to the other piece, the Bear Stearns hedge funds, two of them blew up. That's creating a lot of controversy and concern.
The blow up was directly involved with those subprime loans that got a lot of attention.
Exactly.
Correct?
Right.
They took those loans and what did they do with them?
Okay. They package them, they resell them, they have investment banks lending to them, borrowing, reselling them. You don't even know what's in a lot of these things. The big issue, though, is not so much the packaging, although that's got some hair on it, as we say. The big issue is that one of the funds was levered 10 to 1. You're using leverage on a 10 to 1 basis to magnify, hopefully, the returns. Mm-hmm. But remember, that can go the other way and go south.
So basically, much like when a homeowner puts a certain percent down on a house, these hedge funds put a certain percent down on this big bundle of billions of dollars of loans packaged together.
Exactly.
So the gains would be great, but the losses will be great.
The losses could be extraordinary, and that's basically
what
happened.
How bad?
We're talking $10 billion or so. That's kind of the estimate. It could be more, but the question is this, going back to your question, is it a crisis? Is this Bear Stearns deal the tip of the iceberg? And that we don't know.
What's beneath the surface?
Well, beneath the surface is a giant
iceberg. Are they mainly these mortgage packages, or is it beyond that? Is it beyond just these subprime loans?
I think it's beyond that, although the subprime loan issues is another one that requires a whole show. Mm-hmm. But you're looking at, okay, how many people have loaned to various hedge funds to make these investments and to other investors to buy these, to package them? Who's levering up these to sell them? We don't know the extent of it.
I see. So what you're saying, and what is the leverage that they normally use, 10%, 20%?
You know, it depends. I think in the typical hedge fund world, a 2 to 1 leverage is probably okay, and there are many hedge fund firms, much like ours, that don't use any leverage at all. Mm-hmm. So it's really, when you're looking at that, you're looking at how much risk am I taking on to get that return.
Okay, bringing it back to our pension funds, university endowments, were they the ones lending the money, or were they part of the equity for the down payment?
They were probably one of the investors, and I mean, there are a lot of different investors in these funds, so I don't know. But I think that to detract a little bit from your concern about it being a crisis, mm-hmm. you know, I disagree with that. This is hopefully an isolated thing. Mm-hmm. Its ripple effect may not be huge, but for your viewers, they should know that they're invested in a variety of different hedge funds. Hopefully, they've got people on the endowment staff or consultants that are helping them find the right hedge funds that do what I said, and that's enhance returns and reduce risk.
Back to Capitol Hill. One of the reasons why Congress and the Senate they are looking at hedge funds is because they're basically unregulated. Now, here's my question to you, because you're in the business. When a pension fund like the San Francisco Firefighters Union pension gives you money to invest in this form of investment, how do they know that you're doing the right thing? Do they have people sophisticated enough to know what you're doing? Or do they just trust you after you make your presentation? And of course, you make a great presentation.
Just trust me. No. And one of the reasons I love being on your show is that we get to debate and I get to disagree with you, which is always fun. The fact that you say that they're not regulated is not true. I mean, there are SEC registered hedge funds. There are securities laws that govern everybody, all hedge funds, whether you're registered or not. There are all sorts of state statutes that govern how these firms are
Bill,
operating.
I'm talking about the reporting requirements, the SEC reporting requirements for securities and real estate trusts is burdening.
Right.
But required. I don't think hedge funds have to report to our union people, our guests who have their money invested in this, in the same fashion. Tell me I'm wrong.
You are correct in that. Hedge funds do not have the same sort of reporting requirements as, let's say, a mutual fund. Mm-hmm. But at the end of the day, it's an efficient market relatively.
What does that mean?
And that means that for, let's say, the big union, let's say it's the police union or the fireman's retirement fund or the city and county of San Francisco's retirement plan, you will have consultants and due diligence people and people that are watching these managers, probably talking to them every week if they're doing a good job. They're getting tons of reporting, and if these hedge fund firms or private equity firms are not fulfilling their duty, meeting a threshold level of performance, then they're going to get terminated.
But Bill, what Enron showed us and the two big hedge funds that collapsed out of Britain is that by hiding your losses through subsidiaries and LLCs that own corporations, you can bury the loss that you can hide that loss until you hopefully make it back later. How does a union pension fund or a hospital endowment, how can they be sure that what they're seeing is at the same level of honesty and scrutiny as what the mutual funds have to do, what corporations have to do, their stockholders, and so on?
You may never find that absolutely in any one fund.
Do they know that, don't they? When
Yeah,
they
they know
when
that.
they give you the money, they know that.
They know that because you cannot, in most cases, detect fraud, whether it's an Enron, a WorldCom, or a hedge fund, or a mutual fund. And we've had them across the board.
Yes, we have.
That's hard to find. That's hard to find.
So now, what is your prognosis? What is the situation for the security and safety of all these institutions that have invested in hedge funds like yourself, your hedge fund at Falcon?
Well, again, I mean, it's a hugely broad landscape.
Thousands and thousands of hedge funds.
If we winnow it down to, let's say, the Bear Stearns, the subprime mess that we've been talking about, I think there's more room to go there in terms of a fallout. So in that regard, people think, okay, a subprime loan, who does that go to? That goes to the gentleman that works at the 7-Eleven that really has a low income, that would love to buy a house, that
had a
really,
FICO score under 500.
FICO score under 500. He can't really qualify, but some lender's going to help him get that $90,000 to buy that condo.
But not anymore.
But not anymore, because the restrictions are tightening. Now, the effect of that is a couple of things. One, it means that the restrictions get tighter on the lending. Fewer people can buy houses. Home prices continue to fall, as the report came out today.
Go ahead.
Now
let's take it to that next level.
Take it to the next level. Further lending restrictions hurt banks, big lenders, corporations, and not just the guy that works at 7-Eleven.
What is the prognosis of the fact that so many people, including in San Francisco, have been living off of their equity? Okay, the equity even that they thought they had, or the banks thought they had.
Right.
Is that going to have an impact so that people are going to cut back on spending? And now you start seeing a real downturn in the economy, because this is 2/3 of a consumer economy. What's your prognosis?
Perfect question. Perfect question.
Answer, please.
Answer is that yes, it does, because that's Alan Greenspan turned the average home into an ATM machine during the late 90s and the early 2000s. He said, hey, low interest rates, pull all that money out of your house.
And the banks gave credit cards for home equity loans. If you got a home equity loan, you actually got a card.
You got a card. So what do? You go buy plasma TVs, you go buy cars, you go buy that.
Okay.
Suddenly your house price dips and you go, oh my God, I'm poor. I used to be rich.
But like in the subprime market, how many homeowners, how many of Americans are going to really be affected by that, even though the price of homes are sort of flat right now? Is it just a small group like it is a small group of loans? 30 seconds.
If you over-leverage yourself and borrow too much, and you're now getting crunched because your mortgage payment's gone way up, you're going to feel it. And you're already seeing it in declining consumer discretionary purchases.
You're seeing it.
You're seeing it. It's happening. Auto sales, plasma TVs, you name it. I mean, you can add
Best
$70
Buy
oil
Buy
into
showing
it too.
those big boxes,
Big boxes
are showing
having trouble.
Yep. Bill Grayson, I hope we didn't depress our viewers. I think in the long run, the Federal Reserve will pump money in and they'll solve the problem. They're not going to. Too many people have vested interests, including yourself. Bill Grayson, thanks for being with us.
Thank you, Arthur.
Stay with us. We'll be right back.